On Thursday, Florida Governor and Republican presidential hopeful Ron DeSantis signed a law that bans abortion after 6 weeks into pregnancy.
Opponents of the abortion ban argue that it's effectively only 4 weeks, often before many women wouldn't even know that they are pregnant. American Civil Liberties Union of Florida said it would disproportionately affect women from poorer backgrounds and rural communities, or force them to travel out of state or resort to illegal practices.
Joining us now to talk about this and whether anything at all should change in the UK, where abortion is allowed up to 24 weeks of pregnancy, are feminist writer Jean Hatchett and spokesperson for the Society for the Protection of Unborn Children, Grace Brown. So if I start with you, Jean, to reduce the time to 6 weeks, is that really a roundabout way of banning abortion?
Oh, yes, it absolutely is. The majority of women aren't aware that they're pregnant, or don't take steps towards seeking an abortion until after 6 weeks and 6 days. So, but, you know, having said that, the majority of women who do seek an abortion, do have an abortion, have done so by, 15 weeks or not very much after. The overwhelming majority. So, the laws that we have here allowing abortion up to 24 weeks are established. They're actually much stricter than people imagine, that an abortion does have to be sanctioned by 2 medical professionals, and it has to be with still, in this country, quite strict criteria. So it's not as though women can just choose and wander and not think about it too much and just choose an abortion. It's actually much stricter than that.
But, Jean, is there not an argument for reducing the time at which people can have an abortion? I mean, as modern technology and science moves on, I mean, babies now can be born at 20 weeks, 21 weeks and live and survive. And so is there not an argument that actually, and particularly what you said, that most people make the decision after 15 weeks or so, is there not an argument to tweak the time limit to say maybe 20 weeks where babies are viable, and say that an abortion should be done by then, even if we don't go as far as Florida and make it as 6 weeks?
Well, I don't agree with that. I think there's so much lobbying going on already in this country around abortion rights that, we've, like I've just said, we've already got very strict criteria. Most babies are not viable beyond, before 24 weeks. So we have got, the Abortion Act 1967 made provisions specifically for women, but also for, for the rights of babies who would be born, who were viable beyond that point. And I think we have it right here. In fact, I actually think it's maybe too strict in some circumstances. So
if I can bring in Grace, and maybe which circumstances is this too strict before I bring in Grace?
I just think, the wording that there has to be the risk of grave permanent injury to a woman's physical or mental health for those 2 doctors to grant a woman an abortion.
OK, thanks for that clarification. But bring in Grace then. So 24 weeks in the UK, and for all the reasons that Jean said, that seems to be, a reasonable time. And 6 weeks, really, is that not more about banning abortions, actually, than giving women choice should they need to not have their child?
Well, I think that Florida's Heartbeat Protection Act recognises the humanity and the worth in unborn children. So this law is intended to protect as many unborn children as possible by upholding their basic right to life once a heartbeat is detected. And this does support women as well. And the law will allocate $25 million in funding to pregnancy resource centres across the state to ensure that women are protected and supported. Texas, for example, 2 years ago passed a very similar Heartbeat Act. In the first month of this new law coming into effect, abortion rates plummeted by 50%. So we know that Heartbeat Acts work to protect human life. And what's happening in Florida is a really significant step forwards for unborn children, and something that we can take great inspiration from in the UK.
But Grace, it may well be that legal, known about abortions have dropped by 50%, but if women are not allowed to have them, then that, I suppose, in some respects is inevitable. Isn't the danger with this kind of law that what you end up going back to is the old days of backstreet abortions being carried out by people who are not qualified and not capable, and that the abortions are still taking place? They're just taking place in a much less safe environment for the mother.
Well, I think that there's never any such thing as a safe abortion, because every abortion is intended to end the life of at least one human. But I think the conversation around, dangerous backstreet abortion is a really interesting one, because really in the UK currently, that is what we have through state-sponsored DIY abortion. So DIY abortion currently in the UK sees a woman obtain abortion drugs over the internet without having to meet a doctor face-to-face, and she then performs her own abortion at home without any medical supervision or support. So,
Grace, do you want to
have a system
Grace,
state-sponsored by that?
Grace, do you want to ban abortions full stop? Is that your aim and goal? Yes, it is.
Yes,
so you don't understand the choice or the need.
Is unthinkable, and human life is protected from the moment of conception.
So, Jean, Grace doesn't agree with abortion at all, but, surely we have to think of the woman, the mother's needs in circumstances.
Well, obviously, I'm a feminist, so I don't believe that women are baby factories for men. Women have a right to bodily autonomy. And when you're talking about women who seek abortion, you also you've got to think in there about why women would need an abortion. And so the law in the States, at current state of play, it's up to 15 weeks, but not in the case of rape or incest. Now, we know that children who are born to women who are in abusive relationships are at great risk themselves, but also it traps that woman in that relationship. So there are a number of reasons why a woman might not think it is the right time for her to have an abortion.
Well, Jean, I take the point about women having the rights and having a choice and all the rest of it. I guess Grace's point is that who speaks up for the unborn baby? The woman can speak up for herself. The unborn baby can't speak up for themselves, and therefore other people have to speak up on their behalf. Do you not think that the interests and the rights of that unborn child, they have some rights as well, and that somebody should be able to speak up for their interest?
But a fetus is not a viable baby. This is not a human life until it is born into the world. And if a woman makes that decision that she doesn't want to bring or be responsible for a child and bring that child into the world, then that's absolutely her right. And, no male politician should be having a say over forcing a woman to give birth. We're not baby factories.
Grace, can I bring that point to you? Say a woman doesn't want a child, and it might be a very abusive relationship that maybe she's in. It could be one of the reasons she doesn't want the child. Is that the sort of environment that you'd want to see a child brought in to?
Well, I think, of course, every woman's circumstance is different, and we can acknowledge and appreciate that. But I think it's important to acknowledge that, an unborn child is not part of a mother's body. Bodily autonomy does have limits. One person's right to control their own body cannot supersede the right to life of another person. So, of course, we wouldn't want to see children brought into disadvantaged circumstances. But I don't think that that's an argument for abortion. I think that that's an argument for taking positive steps to improve the quality of living for everyone.
So how about that, Jean? Maybe then it isn't an abortion. Would it be an adoption then? But then I also have to question, if you're in a controlling, coercive, abusive relationship, would you be allowed to have that child adopted? Jean, quickly for an answer.
I just think this notion of it's hyperbolic to call it an unborn child. It isn't a child until it is born. And this idea that the child is existing independently of a woman within her body is nonsense. I've given birth. I know this. So, I don't know whether your other interviewee has. I've also had an abortion. I have been able to choose both of those things. And I think that's a right that we must fight really, really vehemently to protect in this country.
Jean Hatchett, Grace Brown, thank you so much, both of you, for joining us this morning and for having such a very mature and respectful debate on a subject that I know causes people to get have very strong opinions. We appreciate that.
And giving very honest answers as well.
Absolutely.
Very personal,
very interesting
and honest
debate,
answers.
isn't it, about where the balance should lie.